where we feel like we're doing things one way and we're getting those results, but the reality, the data tells us something different. And so I like to base all of my decisions, all of my actual implementation based on what are the actual metrics. What are we trying to grow? Are we trying to grow the production? Are we trying to grow our case acceptance? Are we trying to grow patient retention? Are we trying to have team retention?
And guess what, Dennis? Doctors do not call people's cell phones and check on you. Like, it doesn't happen at all.
That transfer of trust from the patient referring to the new patient is worth its weight in gold.
Welcome back to another episode of Dental Marketing Theory. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I'm the owner of SNC National, where we help offices just like yours level the playing field against the big guys out there so you can grow the way that you want. But if you aren't doing these 7 things every single day, you're not growing. And today I have Callie Ward, who's the founder and CEO of Dash Dental Consulting. And she's going to share what she does every single client. With every single client she works with, she shares these 7 things. And if they do them every single day, you will grow. You're not going to want to miss this one. Stay tuned. All right. So Callie, I'm excited to have this conversation with you because you've given me the 7 things, and I totally agree with you. These 7 things in any business, it's not just dental. I mean, I do these things every single day. And if you're doing these things every single day, you're going to grow. Like, there's no way around it. And so let's just jump into them. I would love to understand number 7. And well, let me say this. Number 1 is super compelling. I love number 1. And then also you have a free resource that we're going to give away at the end. So listen all the way through. Some of these you're going to go, oh, I already do those. Great. But are you doing all 7? I think it's the package deal. So let's talk about the first one: metrics monitoring, tracking production, collections, and scheduling. Walk me through what you recommend to your clients to do with those numbers every single day.
Well, I think that there are a lot of people who have their eye on search and metrics. And I think that there's a lot of conversation in dentistry, especially where we feel like we're doing things one way and we're getting those results, but the reality, the data tells us something different. And so I like to base all of my decisions, all of my actual implementation based on what are the actual metrics. So it depends on what the doctor is hoping to see differently, and they have to figure out what that is. So we need to know the vision for the consulting. We need to know the vision for where the practice is heading. We need that clearly conversation with the team so that they know that they're on the same page, we're headed in the same direction. And then when we know what those metrics are, what's our starting point? Where do we want it to be? And then what behavior are we going to do differently to get to that result? Because if we're going to do everything the same, we're going to see the same result. And we've got to be able to identify what exact behavior that it is that we're changing. And we can't try and change everything at one time. So I like to work with my clients to pick a couple key metrics, work on those, and then the next month we look at something different.
So is it production, collections, and scheduling? Are those like the 3 main ones that you usually start with? Or is there different ones based on the problems, is what I'm hearing you say, right?
Different ones based on the problems. Of course, production and collections, right? And honestly, I don't care what you can produce. Like, good on you if you could produce $5,000 an hour. If we don't collect it, it doesn't mean anything. So I want to know what are those metrics? What are we trying to grow? Are we trying to grow the production? Are we trying to grow our case acceptance? Are we trying to grow patient retention? Are we trying to have team retention? Like, there's so many different things, and it just is dependent upon what is actually happening in the practice. What are their strengths? I like to have them identify that. Where do they see the opportunities? And then what is it that we really want to focus on for a certain period of time to change the result?
Great. Okay. So then now let's move on to number 6, patient communication, building personal connections before dentistry. So when I hear patient communication, I'm thinking like text and emails and like marketing, but I don't think that's what you're talking about.
That's the front end, right? That's your wheelhouse of getting the patient's attention, grabbing them and getting them to the phone. But for me, it is the dentists are really good at dentistry. They're really good at the mouth. And there's a whole human being behind that mouth. And if we don't see that human being and that we don't connect to them as humans, that patient is not going to have that ultimate trust with us and a relationship to feel like they're in a safe space to move forward. So I love to help dentists connect quickly. And when I say connect, I want the patient to walk away knowing something about them. So we're really good at talking about the weather. What did you do this weekend? We're great at asking those questions to the patients, but they don't walk away knowing anything about us. So I like to, where do you live? Where do you work? Where did you go to school? Can I find any connection? Um, you and I were just talking that my name is the same name as your daughter's name. We have that connection that we both know about each other and not something that we will remember. And so I really encourage doctors and teams to build connections, track those connections, right? And build on them. So if the doctor likes the hike and the patient likes the hike, that's an immediate connection. And they immediately fall into another level of connection that makes the patient feel safe. It lowers their cortisol. It makes them more able to be present and actually hear what the doctor is saying.
Yeah, that's great. I've seen offices do it as like they call it like a green sheet or a yellow sheet in their office, and then it's just like a piece of paper in their charts or a digital page on their chart of just things that that patient's interested in, whether it's their kids playing t-ball or a new job promotion they got, or they got married recently, or they're going to get married, whatever it may be. So that's, yeah, if you have those things, works tremendously. All right, let's talk about number 5, team development. What does this mean? Because I'll be honest with you, I think dentistry, unless you're on the clinical track, right? There's tons of stuff. If clinically you want to improve, there's almost too much information out there of clinically how to get better. But if you want to just move up in a dental office, there's not a lot of tracks and not a lot of growth out there. So what do you mean by that from a team development standpoint?
Well, I think it's important to know what motivates each of your team members. And I think it takes a little bit of time and intentional connection. So I love to ask my team members, rank these 5 words in order of importance to you. So growth, challenges, money, respect, and purpose. And when we know what really is their passion, right? Like what's most important to them, then I like to ask them, how do you fill that cup with your job that you do every day? So a perfect example is I had an assistant and she was mortified that we didn't recycle in the office. And I'm like, what do you need to recycle? Like what exactly? So we bought a couple of recycle bins. I wanted commitment from her that if she didn't want to do it anymore, that she would train the next person so that it would continue on. And then she was able to recycle. And on the days, and it sounds so crazy, but I saw her, I heard what was important to her. And when she was recycling, she was on cloud 9 and absolutely fulfilled because she was making an impact in something that meant something to her. And that's where what's easy is throwing money at it. Well, sometimes the practice isn't profitable enough. So how else can we see them for where they're at and help them feel like their cup is full at the end of the day?
So is the goal here kind of just to, because we're talking about monitoring these things every day. So is it just like, how would you monitor that every day?
Right. And I think it's giving the team a safe space at the morning huddle to be able to communicate. And I love to be able to hear shout outs. So words of acknowledgement. I heard Susie on the phone with a tough patient yesterday. Great job. Just acknowledgement of what they are doing day in and day out for their job, something positive as opposed to something negative.
You didn't do this. You never do this right, right? It's so easy to see the negative things and forget to recognize the positive things. I have something every day. I try to start my day every day with being thankful and just for stuff around me, right? But then also at the end of my day, I have a little reminder on my calendar, who am I going to send a thank you card? And I don't send them every day, but like as an example today, I have it on my calendar to send you a thank you card for taking time to share this with me today. I'm going to do a couple other podcasts today as well. Same thing, like, hey, thanks, Callie, for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. If you just go out of your way to do that, it goes a long way. And I love the 5 words that you shared. Could you share those again? It's growth. What were the other 4?
Growth, challenges, money, respect, and purpose.
Yeah, those are really good. I love those. So I would always go, well, growth is most important. I'm always like, what's the upside? Where's the upside? Right? Like, how do I get to the upside? And it's like, well, you're not going to make any money for 2 years on this, Gary. And I'm like, is there a pot at the end of the rainbow that's really big and you're not going to pay me today? Totally fine with that. I've always been that way. Right. And it took me forever to realize that other people aren't actually wired that way, because I tried to motivate people that way. And I'm like, hey, if you do this job and it works, then I'll give you a big $100,000 bonus. And no one ever did it. You know what I mean? Because they're like, They want the consistency.
Right. Well, and you just said something earlier that there isn't really that much growth potential within a dental practice. And I would argue with that because it's not your typical I want the VP position. Like we've got if you're up front, you've got a couple of different titles, maybe a team lead, maybe an office manager. But there's a lot of ways to communicate with your team and to help them find growth in whatever role that they are. And there's so many more resources out there now than in 1992 when I started in dentistry. There's groups, there's ways to be involved there. You can be published. There's so many things, but we have to figure out what that is. And I love to set up growth conferences with my team members. So it's not just that I've been here for 5 years, I deserve a raise. It's what do you want to do? Where do you want to skill set wise improve? Maybe you want to take on some more responsibilities. And maybe you want to become our digital person. Maybe you want to become our specialist on posting for our social media. Those are all things that we need in a dental practice that people have the ability to grow in their position, even if it isn't necessarily a titled position.
There we go. And number 4 is practice vision. Okay, how do you watch your practice vision every day? I would struggle with that.
So I think we have to figure out what it is that we're focused on. If our vision of the practice is patient health, then at the huddle every day, how are we helping move our patients towards better health? It just depends on what the vision of the practice is, and the practice needs to be all on the same page. So the doctor, what's the end game? Are we going to sell to a DSO? Are we going to stay? Do we want to be? Are we in a DSO? Do we want to stay single practice? Like, how much do we want to grow? What is it that we're working towards? What is our number one goal? Is it our patient health? And then looking at everything that we do, are our core values in alignment with that in every interaction that we have with our team members and our interaction with our patients? And is that moving us towards that goal?
All right. So that's practice vision. I love that. And then number 3, this is the one I like, marketing readiness. What do you mean by that? How do I watch my marketing readiness?
Well, I think there's systems like is the team converting the calls? Do they know what their purpose is when they answer the calls? Are they tracking how we found that new patient? Are we adding notes in there of who that patient is involved with? Like what kind of groups are they in? And I think that there's every single thing that we do in a dental practice is marketing. So how are we handling a conflict? Because that is also marketing. So always looking at where those opportunities are. And you talked about sending a card. I think that is one of our most overlooked opportunities. We don't get physical mail anymore. And how often do we get an actual card written in the mail?
Well, I was at a conference. I've had this happen twice. At a conference, and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" Just like passing, "Hey." And someone said, come here. And I sat down next to them, and they started digging in their purse. Both times it was a woman. And they're digging in their purse. You know how women are, right? They had this massive purse, and they're just like digging. I don't think they knew I was going to be at this event. And they pull out this old tattered card, and they started to cry. And they were like, "I got this from you." It was so like, I just carry it with me because it reminds me to be thankful. I've had that happen twice. And it's like, to me, it's like, it takes me 5 minutes at the end of my day to do. You know what I mean? It's like not a big deal. So it does make a big impact. One thing that I talked to a dental office that did very little marketing, and they had tons of patient referrals, and they grew like crazy, multi-location. So I bring on their operation manager on a podcast, and I'm like, "Okay, tell me the secret. What are you doing?" And she said, every day, my dentist on the car ride home, they call the patients that they did treatment with and just say, "How are you doing?" And 95% of the time, she said, they don't answer. No one answers the random number, you know what I mean, anymore. So all they're doing is leaving a voicemail like, "Hey, Dr. Gary, just want to check in with you. Make sure everything went smoothly. Make sure you're feeling good." She said, "We do this every single day in and day out. And guess what? Doctors do not call people's cell phones and check on you. Like, it doesn't happen at all. It's too much HIPAA compliance, this and those kind of, you know what I mean? Like, just doing these basic things." She was like, we have too many new patients. We can't even manage all the new patients that we have from patient referrals. And the people that are coming in love us, and we don't even really have to do anything. They just automatically love us.
That transfer of trust from the patient referring to the new patient, it is worth its weight in gold. We we leveraged Facebook. So this was, quite a few years ago. And I would scroll through, I'd spend like 30 minutes on Facebook and I'd scroll through our patient's feed. And let's say that I came across a gentleman, and this is sad, he lost his dog. So he had posted a picture of his dog. And I had a stack of cards always in the staff room that everybody would sign, and we would pull them and use them for whichever things came up. And we sent this gentleman a sympathy card for losing his dog. And he was kind of a gruff older man. I had nothing in common with him, had tried to connect many times and just fell flat. And this man brought in two different sets of people, physically brought them into the office to introduce them to me because that was his child. That dog, he didn't have kids, he didn't have a wife, that was his family. And he felt so appreciated and connected with. And that's just paying attention, right? That's just making a small effort to connecting to the human being who happens to be our patient.
Love that. Love that. Yes, that's such a big impact. All right. So let's move on to number 2, consistency in leadership. So we're getting to the good ones now. Okay. How do I daily keep a track of consistency in leadership? This is a hard one.
It is and it isn't. So a lot of offices, we have the owner doc or the head doctor, and we also have an office manager, or we have the key person who's kind of running those two positions. The reality is we have to have somebody that's our go-to. We have to have somebody that shows up on time and leads the way. And I think that that's really important. If you're having a team meeting, that includes the doctors. You are part of the team, aren't you? Like we need to have people who are modeling the way to emulate and look up to. And that means we all have to show up. If I show up and I've got my cell phone on and I'm doing that as the leader, I'm misleading my team. That is not an appropriate thing. So we have to have those key people who are there every day, who encourage, who lead by modeling the way, who are supportive, who sees when somebody is falling behind and takes a moment to check in and say, gosh, how are you doing? What can I do to help you? And I think that's the best question we can ask in everything that we do. How can I help you?
I love that. I that's something I try to practice just in my general life, is like, is there anything I can do to help you? And people are usually taken back by that question. And most people say no. Most people are like, no, I'm good. Like, no. And every once in a while, somebody will test it and they'll be like, will you pay for my wedding or something like that? And I'd be like, I would love to, but I can't do that. So, all right, last one. And this is probably the one that will bring the most impact if you do every single day. And I think, I'm going to guess, this is the one that you take all of those other things we just talked about and you roll it up into this one. And this is like the capsule of the medicine, right? The medicine's the thing that makes you better, but you need the capsule to hold the medicine together to get down your throat and into your system. Morning huddles.
Amen. If you're not having them, start. And we want to start intentionally with positivity. What was great about yesterday? Who can we celebrate? What was good? What did we do just the way that we wanted to do it? Start in that positivity. And it can't be the same person leading it every time. I like to have one team member lead for a week and swap to somebody else, because we all come to the table with a different energy and it doesn't become so monotonous. And if you can read it on the schedule, we're all adults. I don't want you to repeat that at the huddle. What's the underlying information? Think of it as your air traffic control for the day. What do we need to do to be prepared? We need our systems in place. We need to be clearing out, who are our patients? What are we doing? Do they take a long time to get numb? Are they really talkative? Do we need to get, all of those logistics? What do we need to have to make today successful? And then looking at yesterday as well, where did we have a challenge? Where did we have a road bump that something was difficult? Let's put that on our parking lot list of something to discuss at our next team meeting if it was a challenge. Maybe we ran behind schedule. Maybe somebody didn't know a process and we need to train them more. So it's a very quick way, an analysis of our day yesterday. What are we going to do today? Where are opportunities? Tell me all about that new patient. How long has it been since we've been to a dentist? Are they excited about coming or are they fearful? All of those pieces that we can share. Who owes us money? Let's collect that money. Who isn't scheduled for their next appointment? And then look at tomorrow in the forward pace of where's my next major block that's opening so that the dentist can go and diagnose a crown and say, hey, I've got an appointment on Thursday. Let's get you in. So you're taking care of an analysis of yesterday, air traffic control for today, and in the future, what are we going to do to be prepared for tomorrow?
How can people reach out to you and learn about what you offer to help get these things implemented in their office?
Absolutely. I have a website called dentalconsulting.com, and I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I would love to connect.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Gary.